Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast with J. Gordon Duncan. And if you're wondering why the J, the answer is, I'm not a bagpipe player. And if that joke doesn't make any sense, I encourage you to check out episode 0, where I explain that joke, as well as the purpose of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast, where we talk about faith, family, fitness, finances, and sometimes fun. Hi, friends. Welcome back. Thank you so much for listening. I just love doing the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast. Someone asked me about it just this week, and they said, how long have you been doing this? And I was like, wow, over 4 years. And they were surprised, but I've just enjoyed it. I love the people I get to meet and I get to talk to. I love the interaction that we have each week when these episodes go up. Thank you, everyone who listened to last week's episode with Corey. Corey's got an amazing story. First of all, just the advocate she is for public and free healthcare at the Lloyd Moss Clinic. The things that she does there are just amazing. And then just hear her story of overcoming lifelong athlete, equestrian, runner, cyclist, and then nearly losing her foot in the middle of a pandemic. So if you didn't get to listen to that episode, please go back and listen to it. Corey Bacher, she's a healthcare advocate, and she has just overcome a very inspirational story. So please go back to that. One, what she's doing with the Lloyd Moss Clinic locally here in Fredericksburg, Virginia is amazing. But then again, her story, just inspirational of just overcoming, nearly losing her foot in the middle of a pandemic. And now she's back. I think she has, by the time this publishes, she may have already had her first equestrian competition and doing the best she can to get back to running as a cyclist. So thank you, everyone who listened. Thank you for everyone who commented and just watched or listened. It means a ton. I have a blast doing this every week. I really do. So guys, but this week, I want to take a moment because with Capitalized Marketing, one of the things we're doing is we're helping coaches and authors create courses. I want to speak specifically about coaching right now because I know a ton of people who, one, have a license in running or physical fitness, or they're trainers, or they've gone through John Maxwell training, or they've just gone through something significant and they want to move into the coaching space. And I want to speak about that because it is an incredible time for that space. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to broaden their impact simultaneously to make extra income. And you may ask yourself, you may say, online it seems like there's a million coaches, and there are. We don't need a million more coaches. We need more good coaches. So I'd like to share my story again with how I got into coaching. And then I want to share with you a little bit about how we help, and then really just encourage you to consider taking that step. But it means a ton for the people who go through great coaching programs. So remind you a little bit of my path. When I'm going to go back to 1999, I had gone through teaching and I had gone outside sales, and I was managing an eye care clinic. We had 14,000 patients. We had a bunch of doctors. I had a big staff, and my doctor put me in charge of everything except actually being an eye doctor, which means I hired and fired, and initially I was the bookkeeper, and I was filing the insurance, and I was training the eye care staff, and I was making the bank deposits, basically everything except being an eye doctor. I loved it, and he gave me the motivation that I got a percentage of net profit. And so I ran that office, and I made a lot of mistakes on the front end, but I got good at it. And then I created systems so that every person in the office could begin making a bonus. And because if the doctor was going to make money and I was going to make money on the profit, I wanted my staff to make money as well, and that motivated them. Sometimes that bonus was as simple as, hey, we've earned breakfast tomorrow morning, and I pick up some muffins. Sometimes it would be, hey, we've earned lunch on Friday for the staff meeting. We had every other Friday staff meetings. And then sometimes just cold hard cash. Like, hey, the frame sellers, you guys sold over and above the frames. Hey, the entire staff, we improved our deposits over last year at this time. And so I wanted every area of the office to have a motivational component. As simple as food, as big as cash. And again, all that was based upon the improvement of the practice. If the practice improved, then we were profitable, I got my percentage, and ultimately the doctor had a growing practice. And I'm proud to say right now that even with the mistakes I made and things I learned, now, 20 years later, that doctor has double-digit practices. It's bloomed and blossomed and gone on. I played a tiny part of that. He's a great doctor, very smart, very excited to see what they're doing. But in 2003, I had started my master's work, and I was in seminary, and I was trying to manage the clinic and in seminary, and I was struggling to do both well. Also had one baby at that time. I didn't know we were about to have our second. And so working with Amy and a conversation with her, I realized I really needed to figure out what I wanted to do. So I wanted to go all in and finish my master's program, and I didn't think I could manage the clinic at the same time. So I went and made a bank deposit, and I had just had a conflict with my doctor. And at this point in time, I'm sure it was my fault. I was arrogant. I was like 33. And I called Amy, and I was like, you know what, Amy, I think I'm going to go back and put my notice in. I didn't have any plan. And she said, you know what, I think you should. And so Amy definitely believed in me. She believed in going to seminary. She believed in just that we would make it work. So I went to lunch with the doctor. I went back and said, hey, can we grab lunch? Because that morning had been contentious. And he wanted our relationship to go well. And so I sat down with him and I was like, hey, doc, this is what I'd like to do. I'd like to give you a 4-month notice. In August, I'd like to step away. But what I want to do is that 4 months will give me time to hire my replacement and train them on every single thing I do. A 2 weeks notice is not going to work for you. I want to work with you to find my replacement. We're going to train him really hard. And he agreed to that. But basically that meant I had 4 months to figure out how to make a living. And as it goes, as soon as I put that notice in, we found out we were pregnant at that point in time with Landry, our second daughter. So we did 2 things. We immediately streamlined our life. My sister-in-law moved in. We got rid of our debt. We just really streamlined in every way. We made our expenses as low as they could be. And I'm still trying to figure out how to make a living. And I was reading books, a very early 2000 book, How to Be a Marketing Superstar, something like that. I read the autobiography of Gene Simmons of KISS. I mean, he's definitely a brilliant marketing person. And then I remembered that we had received a consultant as a gift. You can't really do that in the eye care industry these days. That's kind of illegal and HIPAA, it's not HIPAA compliant. But an eye care company, a contact lens company, gave us a consultant. And she was very good. She had come in and she received $10,000 in 2003 to spend 5 days with us. And she looked at every aspect of the company. At the end of the week, she wrote this big old 3-ring binder. And she went over it with us and gave it to us. And there were all these things for us to implement. And I remember liking her, but I didn't have the time to implement what she wanted implemented. So over the course of that 4 months, I'm remembering all this. I'm reading these books and literally had a dream one night. And woke up the next morning. I was like, Amy, I think I'm going to become an eye care consultant. And made sense. And so that day during my lunch break, I went and got my own cell phone because I had a company cell phone. And I ordered some business cards, declared myself an optometric consultant, and that was the beginning. And so I reached out to a doctor I knew, and I said, hey, doc, could I consult with you for free, basically imitate what I had seen that one consultant do. And at the end of the day, I'll give you some recommendations. I'll do it for free, and if you like it, would you be a referral for me? And he said, of course. So I went and worked at his office for free, and I examined everything, and I wrote up my notes, and I sat down with him, and he said, his nickname was Rosie, and he was like, Rosie said, Gordon, I don't care about what's in that notebook. This is really just a favor for you. Of course, I'll be a reference for you. And, within 2 weeks of the end of managing, I had my first doctor. I was into the consulting world. Now, consulting is a little bit different than coaching. Consulting is when you're looking at the scope of a business or the scope of a group of people, and you're making recommendations on how to improve it. There is a coaching aspect of it, but consulting is more broad. Coaching is more singular. But I got my start as a consultant in 2003. And so that was primarily the money we lived off of in 2003, 2004, and 2005. I did work for a church at that time. The first year I made $100 a month. Woo! And the second year I made $1,000 a month. But we really lived off my consulting money. And there were times where I had doctors and then I didn't. It was definitely a test of faith. Well, when we planted our first church in 2005, I continued to consult and did what's called bivocational work there, where I spent half my time earning an income outside the church and then earning an income from the church. And that was for about 7 years there. And as we came up to Fredericksburg, Virginia, where we are now, in 2013, I really took a break from consulting. Part of that was it wasn't as necessary, and the other part was my brain wasn't working because that was really the onset of my epilepsy. I always had one doctor at least I kind of kept working with, but I really wasn't pursuing it. As I got my brain back, as the epilepsy came under management and control, I started consulting again, but things began to expand. I realized that I had resources for lots of industries, not just eye care. So I started doing some marketing. I was hired to do some HR consulting, and that's when an eye doctor would say, "Hey, I need a front desk employee. I don't have time to deal with it. I want you to find the resumes. I want you to do the first stage of interviewing. I want you to give me 2 or 3 folks." And so doctors would hire me. I would post the job. I would get a couple of hundred resumes. I would go through them. I would then pick a certain number to do phone interviews. And if that went well, then I would set up a day where I would go to the doctor's office, sometimes in North Carolina, South Carolina, all over the place. And I would interview 8 or 10 people in one day. And then I would recommend 1 or 2 of them for the doctor to make the final decision. So I did HR consulting, and then that turned into large-scale HR consulting where a manufacturing company hired me to do all their hiring and firing and overview their HR practices for a 2-state, 4-facility building. And so that was fun, and I found that I began to gain skills doing some marketing, but I wanted to hone in on individual coaching as well. So a couple of years ago, I think back in 2019, went back and took the John Maxwell certification program. John Maxwell is a leadership coach. He's been the guru since the late 70s. He's old school, but old school gets it done. If you're not familiar with John Maxwell, go get his 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. He's got some great books out there. And again, he's a bit old school, but it's worthwhile. And he offers a coaching program where you can be certified as a John Maxwell coach. So I went to do that for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to improve my skills and not just kind of fly by the seat of my pants. And 2, it gave me some credibility in the area because I could say I've actually been through a coaching program. So Capitalize at that time is growing. We're doing marketing on one side, and then we're doing coaching on the other side. And we had some individual contracts, but it wasn't growing a ton. So at the beginning of this year, I went through a coaching program as an offshoot of John Maxwell, which taught me to be a better coach and how to create coaching programs. So that's where we are now. So Capitalize offers a couple of types of coaching. We have an online course where you go through a series of videos and then you meet with me throughout the modules, and you can create your own coaching program. And then I also do in-person coaching. For example, real estate brokerages will bring me in and I will train their staff on how to do marketing and that kind of thing. So that's my story with coaching. I've left a lot out, but I don't want to wear you out with details you might have heard before. So right now, the joy I have is that people are going through our coaching program. It's called Capitalize Your Best. You can find it at capitalizeyourbest.com if you want to learn a little bit more about it. And then we have a private Facebook group called Capitalize Your Best. You can join that. You just have to answer the intro questions. But right now, we have clients going through that program who are creating their own coaching programs that are helping. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Tani Lee, and she has gone through that program. She's a coach, and now she has a 12-step program to help women who are recovering from different manners of abuse, and she's making a massive impact. We've got other folks in our program. We've got a wonderful woman who's creating a program to help autistic parents thrive in the midst of that. Amazing. I met with another one of our clients the other day, and he's a former pastor, and he's creating a program to help pastors and their families thrive in the midst of all that. So we're just really overwhelmed. We've got coaches all over the place. We've got folks who are travel coaches. We've got folks who are like me, business coaches or leadership coaches. So there's a lot of joy we have right now in helping coaches create online programs. And so I say all that because I'd love for you to consider it as well. Now, whenever I talk to people about being a coach, there's a couple of different responses. Quite often, there's an appeal to being a coach, especially if you can create an online program to create revenue. But the first thing that happens is a measure of imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is when you tell yourself, I'm not good enough to do that, or I'm not smart enough to do that. And I want to help you squash that idea and that belief. Because here's the thing. If you've been through something and you've come out on the other side as a survivor with a measure of health and a measure of lessons that would help someone who's still in that circumstance, you are qualified to be a coach. Think about that. If you are an overcomer and you're on the other side of it and you've survived, and you've got advice for people in the midst of that, no matter what it is, you're qualified to be a coach. You really are. It could be someone, you could have come on the other side of how to survive a divorce. You could come on the other side of, hey, I've lost weight. Or you could come out on the other side of, I had an injury and I learned yoga and now I've gotten over that injury. All those are qualifications for being a coach. You don't have to necessarily be someone who's gone through a John Maxwell program or something like that. You just have to have gone through something. And if you can help someone, then I want you to broaden your impact and make the investment and create a program so you can make that impact. And listen, to be honest with you, and you can make either some side income to help you and your family, or it could grow to such an extent that it is your income. Additionally, I know a ton of folks who are realtors, who are fitness coaches, who have licensing, who are have yoga certifications. I know a bunch of people who have certified training that they've been through that would then enable them to create their own program. I spoke to a young man the other day, and he came out of the Marines. This really sharp, I call him a kid, but this really sharp young man. He's come through the Marines, and now he's doing security work. And he's talked to me about becoming a coach. And he's like, I just don't know what I would do. And I was like, well, who do you admire? And he mentions David Goggins. And if you haven't read his book, go out and get it. I was like, hey, well, let me tell you this. Let me ask you this. Do you think you could come up with your 12 principles for leadership after what you've been through, being in the Marines, and you've been deployed, and what you're doing now? Like 12 unique principles for leadership. He goes, yeah. I was like, well, here's what I want you to do. This weekend, I want you to write those 12 down and come back to me, because you could create a coaching program from that. He doesn't have to be 40 or 50. He doesn't have to have had all these things that we think that qualify. He just has to have a unique perspective on leadership and create a program. I can't wait to see what he does. Same thing for you. Maybe you do have a certification. Yoga, real estate, fitness coach, runner, whatever the case may be. Maybe you've been through programs like hairstylist, anything in the beauty realm. All of those give you a unique perspective to create a coaching program. So I don't want you to keep telling yourself, I'm not qualified or I'm not good enough. You just have to have been through something. You see, I want to give you an opportunity. I want you to have the opportunity to broaden your impact. There is a parable in the Bible called the parable of the talents, or the parable of the steward. But a talent in the scriptures was literally a gold coin. And in this talent, in this parable, there was a manager, and he owned land, and he had sub-managers under him, okay? So he owned land, and there were sub-managers underneath him. And he gave 3 different managers 3 different amounts of talents. He gave one, he goes, hey, I'm going out of town. Hey, manager number 1, here's a bunch of gold coins. Manager number 2, here's a few less gold coins. And manager number 3, a few more coins, but even less. So 3 different managers, 3 different gold coins. And what he asked those managers to do was to be good stewards or good managers of that money. So the owner goes away, he comes back, and the first one has just done really, really well. He took those gold talents and he brought back a huge return on that investment. And so the owner is like, hey, great job. I'm going to put you in charge of even more things. Same thing for manager number 2. Manager number 2 said, hey, I took what you gave me and I multiplied it. And the owner was like, great job. Great job. I'm proud of you. And he gave that second manager even more to be in charge of. But he got to the third manager, and the third manager said, you know what? I'm scared of you. And I'm scared that if I invested these gold talents and I didn't get a return, you'd be angry. So I buried it to make sure you at least had what you gave me back. So he didn't do anything with it. He just buried it because he was afraid of losing money. And in the parable, that manager is punished and the money he had was given to the other manager. Now, what that parable is teaching is that God gives everybody a measure of skills, a measure of physical, talents, things that we do, and in that God expects each and every one of us to be good managers of whatever God's given us. So we need to be good managers of our time. We need to be good managers of our bodies. We need to be good managers of our brain, good managers of our talents. That's what God expects for all of us. It's a gift, but God expects us to do well with that. It's a way of glorifying God by taking care of what he gave us. So mind, body, soul, finances, you get it. And God wants us in that management to do well and multiply it. So what I mean by that, or what the scriptures mean by that, and even if you don't believe in the Bible, I think you can relate to this parable. Each and every one of us has been given intellect, gifts, and abilities. And we have a moral obligation to do well with those things and not waste them. Never is it moral for us to waste or squander something in any realm. And you have gifts and talents. And in it, you can multiply those things by helping others. So when you create a coaching program, that's exactly what you're doing. You're broadening the impact of your gifts and talents. Because there's someone out there who needs to hear it. Someone out there who needs to benefit from it. You can create a 12-step program like Tani, and then there's someone out there who's been through a difficult circumstance, and they're going to go through her program, and they're going to find peace, and they're going to find a new start. For my buddy who is creating the program for pastors and their families, there's a lot of pastors and families out there who are just burned, slam out, and they don't have anywhere to go. And he's creating a program that's going to give them rest and respite. He showed me his 8-year plan. I love it. His 8-year plan the other day. His big plan is to actually have a retreat center and conferences. And I was like, yes, man, I love big visions. You too. Now, you may say, Gordon, I'm nowhere near that right now. I got you. I get it. Do the work on yourself right now to get you there. Do the work of caring for yourself now so that when you're ready, you can broaden your impact and care for others. That's the joy that I have right now. I have lots of joys in my business at Capitalize, but it's one of the biggest joys I have right now is that people are going through our program, they're creating programs, and I'm able to broaden the impact of what God's given me. I love it. Even if you are an atheist or have no trust of the scriptures, I understand that. I'm going to encourage you. You have gifts, talents, and abilities, and your using of them to help others is going to broaden your impact. I think we all have a moral obligation to do that. So if you would like to learn more about how you could do that, there's a couple of ways you can do that. First of all, you can reach out to me anywhere. I'm on every social media platform in the world. You can just reach out and message me. Find me on Facebook, Gordon Duncan, send me a message, right? If you'd like to be a part of a community that's doing those kind of things, just look on Facebook for the private group, Capitalize Your Best, and ask to join. I'm going to put the links in the show notes. But please hear me. There are 3 membership questions to join that group, and no one can join the group without asking those 3 questions because we just want to protect who's in there, right? So please answer those questions. You can go to capitalizeyourbest.com, which is a brief one-page website that talks a little bit about what we do, and then you can get started. So whatever the excuse you have for not getting started is the reason you should get started. And so please follow up me. I would love to help you get started in being a coach. Don't let your inner critic or that inner voice of imposter syndrome keep you from making this step. I think there's a lot of you out there that can make a lot of good, that could broaden your impact, and I can't wait to see it, and I would be humbled to be a part of it. So friends, this is my pitch to anyone. Consider being a coach. Get yourself there, do the things you got to do personally, and then broaden your impact by being a coach. We have tons of coaches out there, but what we need are tons more good coaches. So thanks, guys. I've enjoyed my journey to get this point from a consultant to a coach, and I can't wait to see where it goes from there. We got a lot planned coming up for the rest of the year, and I can't wait to see all you create. Hey, for the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast, I got some great guests coming up, some fun folks. Can't wait to talk to them. But as always, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again next week. Thanks, friends. See you later. Bye-bye.
How do you shorten the time it takes to buy a car? Car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.
Small business owners, you should be praised for wanting to grow your business. That's a good thing, and not everybody has the guts to do it. As a business owner myself, I know you've overcome obstacles that people don't even know about. Hi, my name is Gordon Duncan, the owner of Capitalized Marketing and Consulting, and I want you to know that if your business hasn't grown like you want it to, it's not your fault. If it's not COVID getting in the way, it's ridiculous things like changing social media algorithms. You're right in thinking that very few people are doing small businesses any favors right now. But Capitalized Marketing and Consulting is here to help. We've created a 90-day course that is guaranteed to grow the revenue of your business. It will give you the tools that you've been looking for, and as a certified coach, I would be with you along the way. If you would like to learn more about our program, just visit capitalizeyourbest.com and get started enjoying the success you deserve. Again, that's capitalizeyourbest.com, and I can't wait to celebrate all you accomplish.